Please welcome Head of Threat Intelligence, Trellix, John Boker.
Hello, everyone. Well, there's something different about me from all the other keynote speakers you're going to see at RSAC's conference this year. You see, I didn't always wear a blazer or carry a clicker. Funny story is, I shot that video. I was one of the officers taking part in the raid. We were in Romania arresting affiliates for the infamous CTB Locker ransomware gang. And that's the thing. I've stood face to face with cyber criminals in their world. I've arrested them and I've interrogated them. And I know there's some other people in this room, we like to call them the humble experts or quiet professionals. I've spent the better part of my career figuring out what makes these very bad people tick. And chasing bad guys has been a common thread throughout my career. After I got my computer science degree, I served in the Dutch Marine Corps before joining NHTCU, the National High-Tech Crime Unit of the Dutch National Police. I'm a bit biased, but they say it's one of the best cybercrime units in the world. And it was here where I began to investigate advanced forms and prevent advanced forms of cybercrime. And not long after, I led their intelligence operations, and I traded in my uniform for this, and my badge for this. From NHTCU, I joined Trellix, where I now lead the company's threat intelligence group, a key arm of the Trellix Advanced Research Center. And we, like others in the room, help protect governments and regulated industries like healthcare, financial services, and energy providers, who all happen to be heavily targeted. And it's my team's goal to equip these organizations with the intelligence required to enhance their overall security. And whether as part of the Dutch Marines, the National Police, or in my current role, my goal throughout my career was to give bad people a bad day. And let me assure you, there is nothing more satisfying than giving bad guys a bad day, especially when those bad criminals are threatening hospitals, banks, and governments. In Japanese culture, there's a concept known as ikigai, a term that combines iki, meaning life, and gai, meaning worth. And ikigai is basically the convergence of doing what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and yeah, it does help if you're going to get paid for it. So for me, my ikigai is very simple. It's protecting the good guys and disrupting the bad guys. And I know everybody here has a similar ikigai. And over the next few days, you're going to hear a lot about technology. New features, innovations, and don't get me wrong, they're all really important. We cannot do our jobs without incredible products and services. But I also think it's important to remember what we're actually doing. We are protecting organizations from very bad people. People that want to steal, disrupt, spy, extort, you name it. And so often, we forget that these cyber criminals are real people. And it's tempting to anonymize threats, give them elaborate names for research purposes. But really, they're just bad people with regular names sitting behind a keyboard. And it's also tempting to talk about the latest innovations in things like AI. But take it from me as an ex-cop, a cyber criminal will always prefer a victim with weak passwords, bad patching, and no MFA, as opposed that they have to leverage the latest and greatest in AI. And a lot of what they do is not rocket science. Think about ransomware. It's pure extortion, which happened to be a very old crime. And it seems like either we, as an industry, give them a name to mythologize them, or the threat actors adopt a name to instill fear in their victims, just like motorcycle gangs do. But whether nation-state or financially motivated, I can assure you these cyber criminals are humans and they make mistakes. They're skilled, they're unskilled. They seek wealth, fame, sometimes even community. And of course, they leverage generative AI like ChatGPT. We're publishing a cyber threat report tomorrow, so check it out if you like to see how cyber criminals are leveraging Gen AI. But today, we're going to talk about the people behind cyber attacks. We're going to walk through an ongoing crowdsourced investigation, and what I hope you all come away with is that everybody here plays an important role. And times are changing. In the past, you had very clear lanes of demarcation. Years back, you had hacktivists, cybercrime gangs, state-sponsored groups, and they mostly stayed in their own lanes. Hacktivists caused disruption, cybercrime actors were after financial gain, and nation-states were focused on IP theft and espionage. With the exception of the DPRK-related threat groups, they were also stealing money. But now those lines have blurred. Nation-states are using proxies. And this could be a company, just like we saw with iSoon in the Salt Typhoon case, or using cybercriminals that they can act as a proxy, causing disruption and stealing data. And we've seen from multiple ransomware cases, either a government turns a blind eye or something else is happening under the surface. So let's look at a very recent example of a connection between a ransomware gang and a nation state. In fact, we actually just published research about this. And truth be told, it's unfortunately only one of many examples that showcase the connection between nation states and cybercriminals. So, in February, just a couple of months ago, an anonymous user named Exploit Whispers posted over 200,000 chats on Telegram. The chats were posted in Russian, and according to Exploit Whispers, they were the internal communications of a known Moscow-based cybercriminal organization called Black Basta. So, now some important context. Black Basta is a relatively new organization formed from the remnants of Conti. And funny enough, the Conti's chats were leaked in what we dubbed the Panama Papers of ransomware. And it was those leaked chats that led to the downfall of Conti. So, through careful analysis, we learned that members from Conti moved to different ransomware gangs, one of them being Black Basta. In fact, Black Basta's leader, whose name you'll know in a second, had Conti on his resume. Now, you can talk about a job-hopping career criminal. So, the team and I, along with many of our industry peers, carefully analyzed the leaked chats to ensure that they were real. And through our research, we can establish with a high level of confidence that these chats are legitimate. The chats clearly show a level of connection or relationship between ransomware actors and a government. Now, when you imagine cybercriminals working for a government, you think about these people wearing hoodies or uniforms working in a basement. This couldn't be farther away from the truth. In reality, Black Basta looked more like a scene from The Office than some elaborate team of cybervillains. They worked in a normal office building. They had an HR department, a vacation policy, scheduled work hours. They had entry-level employees, middle managers in the C-suite. And their office even had 2 cafeterias. And we can tell you that the cafeterias are on the 1st floor and the 3rd floor of the main building. We also know their leader, a person who typically goes by the alias Gigi. Gigi's real name is Oleg, and he's a criminal with a colorful history in cybercrime. Before Black Basta, he was part of Conti, where his moniker was Tramp, and now he goes by Gigi. But I'm not calling him Gigi or Tramp, or for anything else for that matter. He's a real person, and his name is Oleg. So, everyone, say hi to Oleg. Now, here's where things get interesting. Oleg is wanted by US law enforcement, and it's not for unpaid parking tickets. He is a very, very bad guy. Last June, Oleg decided to go on holiday. He flew from Moscow to Armenia. However, he was arrested upon arrival by the Armenian police. 3 days later, he escaped custody, and he was back in Russia. How did he escape? Well, it turns out Oleg has some very powerful friends. After he returned to Moscow, Oleg was chatting with a guy named Chuck, and he mentioned how authorities secured him a green corridor, and we believe a green corridor is code for an escape route. Oleg claimed government officials flew to Armenia to ensure he was escorted back safely. And in his conversations with Chuck, Oleg claims that the escape route was only possible because number one was aware of its arrest and intervened on its behalf. So just to recap, for everybody at home keeping score, the leader of a ransomware gang was arrested in Armenia and then mysteriously vanished, bailed out of custody because of a high-placed government official. Now look, these are leaked chats with no proof. Oleg can just be puffing his chest for all we know. But this is not one incident. We know Conti was close with the administration, and Oleg was part of Conti. And other cybercrime groups, like EvilCorp, have shown similar connections. And this story is just one example of the blurring lines between nation states and cybercriminals. It is happening across multiple countries with different regimes and motivations. But the connection is there. It's clear as day. And it's not just cybercriminals doing a nation's dirty work. There are numerous companies that act as proxies for espionage operations or offer highly intrusive services to the highest bidder. And this growing trend poses a significant threat to our community, undermining trust, security, and stability of our society. And when you think of it, it's no wonder CISOs everywhere feel like they're squaring off against Goliath. And on top of that, 90% feel under pressure because of strategic demands, liability issues, reporting requirements, and it's already tough enough to keep your head in the game when your opponents are not just clever, but when they're protected by powerful nations that treat them as profitable proxies. Oleg lives in a country where the government is supporting him, and he will not be held accountable for his actions. And it's not just political motivation, it's financial. If cybercrime were a legitimate industry, it would be the world's third largest economy. It is expected to generate over $10 trillion this year. But we are not helpless. This example of crowdsourced intelligence, which many threat researchers reviewed and helped out, helped us to see that we're not just dealing with ransomware, but a blurry connection between criminals and government officials. But these are not unbeatable geniuses. They're thugs who happen to be good at writing code and breaking into organizations. They are beatable, even at their own highly sophisticated game. Well, why are they beatable? Because Oleg is a human being who makes mistakes, just like everybody else in this room. As an example, last May, Blackbuster conducted a ransomware attack against a US-based healthcare organization, jeopardizing millions of patient records. And for ransomware groups like Blackbuster, it's all about pulling two key levers: the availability of data and the confidentiality of data. And ordinarily, ransomware gangs go after the availability, locking systems to force a payment for decryption. But the healthcare attack was a miscalculation from the start. Oleg admitted in the chats it was a mistake. They never intended to attract the kind of attention that comes from encrypting a US healthcare provider, since that will often trigger a swift response from both the cybersecurity community as well as law enforcement. And their primary concern isn't the ability to, or losing the ability to encrypt their victims. No, it's losing revenue. The last thing they want is to be rendered irrelevant or unprofitable. But when Blackbuster did target the healthcare organization, their encryption tool backfired. Simply put, the system was corrupted. They made a major mistake. And for most ransomware gangs, the key to driving payments is in the decryption piece. If you cannot offer a functional decryption key, you're just another wiper. And nobody is paying you a single dime because the data is already gone. And a reliable decryption process is fundamental to their business model. Without it, they're stuck. So in this case, the healthcare organization wouldn't have paid anyways. And since there was no real decryption key at stake, Blackbuster pivoted to their other lever: confidentiality. They threatened to leak the patient records they'd stolen. Ultimately, they gave the decryption key back for free as an empty gesture to cover up the failed locker, but they still dangled the prospect of public data exposure to pressure the victim. And this attack highlights how ransomware gangs will exploit whichever angle offers them the highest chance of a payout, whether it's attacking the availability or the confidentiality of data, or even both. So, after Oleg escaped, he said in the chats that he wanted to create a new locker, one which did not have the same mistakes as the locker they used during the healthcare attack. He also said it's likely the end of Blackbuster, time for a rebrand. So, as far as we know, they haven't moved on just yet. They inevitably will rebrand in somewhat way, just like with Conti. But we are in a much stronger position thanks to many people in this room. Now remember, this is just one of many examples that we illustrate the blurry connections between nation states and cybercriminals. But our collective efforts have uncovered something that's much deeper than just their code and infrastructure. We have mapped out their tactics, techniques, and procedures, their TTPs. And according to the pyramid of pain, TTPs sit at the top. So it's the most difficult to change for a threat actor. And once we've mapped out their playbook, any code tweaks, quick rebrands won't mask their underlying behavior. Once we know how they operate at the TTP level, we can spot them the moment they launch the next offensive. And that's where we hold the real power. So take a look at this. This is a graph that shows the TTP connections between Blackbuster, their malware, and their known campaigns. It allows us to see connections that we might ordinarily miss. And we're using multiple data points to generate the full picture. It's much like the connections between everybody in this room. And we have this level of insights because of the shared effort of everybody here. And think about the connections between us all. If I drew it out on a piece of paper, this is what it would look like. And we are able to reach this level of insights because of our collaborative effort. And mind you, this graph is just for Blackbuster. We can generate this graph for any threat group. So when I said in the beginning that everybody in this room is part of an investigation, everybody has a role here. It's not just the chats, it's the incident responders, the malware researchers, the negotiators, the collaboration with law enforcement, CISO sharing information, analysts connecting the dots. We are one team working together. And that's why I think it's about time we level up how we talk about our team. Just consider what this room does. We do not only defend organizations, we protect our friends, our families, our way of living. And let's be honest, cybersecurity isn't just a line item in the IT budget. It is the lifeline for organizational survival and growth. We cannot prevent every attack, but we can prepare for them. We can reduce their impact, and we can bounce back stronger. And when we know who's targeting us and how they operate, we gain the clarity to fight back. In other words, when you see your adversary or your enemy in clear daylight, fear melts away. You adapt and you begin to outthink them. And that's the power of coming together as a community, of sharing what we discovered so we're not standing alone. And winning is not that we're going to eradicate crime, but the win is by working together. We become more robust and agile to withstand these kind of attacks. And whether you're on the vendor side or in the front lines of your own organization, you are a part of that resilience. You're the harness that keeps everybody from free falling when the next attack strikes. And it is a lot like mountain climbing, where you wear a safety harness. It's not meant to instill a fear of falling. Instead, that safety harness allows you to tackle more difficult routes, to climb with more confidence, and to ascend as a group to new places. And the intelligence acts as like a skilled mountain guide, navigating treacherous terrain, spotting hidden dangers, and helping organizations chart the safest path and efficient path forward. So let's keep building, keep collaborating, keep climbing together because when we work as one community, there is no question we will reach the top. Thank you.